Hello, dear children. Welcome to the class. Today, we are going to start a new chapter and one of the important function of management, that is controlling. After studying this chapter, you should be able to explain the meaning of controlling, the importance of controlling, the relationship between planning and controlling, and the steps in the process of controlling. We are just going to touch upon this relationship of planning and controlling. We'll straight away move to the steps in the process of controlling. Now, controlling function of management comes to the rescue of every manager. Okay, comes to the rescue of every manager means that it's a function which needs to be performed by every manager. फाइन और मैनेजर को अगर देखना होता है कि किस तरीके से काम हो रहा है तो by all means he need to perform this controlling function. It helps in keeping a track on the progress of activities. वर्कर्स जो भी काम कर रहे हैं उनको सुपरवाइज करना, अगर कुछ गलत हो रहा है तो उसको वही चेक करके करेक्ट कराना, that is all a part of controlling function which needs to be performed by every manager at all the levels. It also ensures that activities conform to the standards set in advance so that organizational goals are achieved. Controlling function ये भी ensure करता है कि whatever standards, whatever benchmark we have set at the time of planning, whether the organization is able to achieve that standard or benchmark or not. So, controlling means ensuring that activities in an organization are performed as per plans. When a manager performs the function of controlling, he needs to ensure that the activities which are being taking place in an organization are being performed as per the plans. Controlling also ensure that an organization's resources are being used effectively and efficiently for the achievement of predetermined goals. कंट्रोलिंग से मैनेजर ये भी इंश्योर करता है बेटा कि जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के रिसोर्सेज हैं वो आइडल तो नहीं पड़े हुए या वेस्ट तो नहीं हो रहे. Resources are being used effectively and efficiently for the purpose of achieving predetermined goals. This is also the purpose of controlling. Following is the definition of controlling given by Coutts and O'Donnell. Managerial control implies the measurement of accomplishment standards, the set against accomplishment against the standard and the correction of deviations to assure attainment of objectives according to plans. Again, I'll repeat myself. This is the definition of controlling given by Coutts and O'Donnell. Managerial control implies the measurement of accomplishments against the standard and the correction of deviations to assure attainment of objectives according to plan. Now let us understand this definition. According to this definition, managerial control means that first we are going to measure the actual accomplishments, our actual results against the standard. Then we are going to compare the actual accomplishments, the actual results against the standards set and the correction of deviations to assure if we are unable to meet the target. So we are going to analyze the deviations कि हम अपने target से कितना दूर है, हमारा जो actual accomplishment है, जो actual result है, वो target से कितनी deviations है. If the deviations are in acceptable limit, then no problem. If not, then corrective actions need to be taken in order to ensure that the objectives or the organizations are achieved as per the plans. And this is what we are also going to learn in our controlling process. Based upon the definitions, you can highlight the following features of controlling. It is a goal-oriented function. Control can only be done if you have got some goals, some standards, some benchmarks to compare the actual performance. It's a pervasive function. It is performed by every manager at all the levels. It's a primary function of every manager. It should not be misunderstood as the last function of management. Why? Because the feedback given by the controlling is going to act as an important input for the further phase of planning. Next phase of planning में जो आपका controlling से feedback मिला होता है managers को, they take it as an important input for planning for the next phase. And lastly, controlling helps in formulation of future plans in the light of the problems that were identified and thus helps in better planning in the future periods. I hope that the features of controlling is clear to everyone. Now, after understanding the features and the meaning of controlling, now let's discuss that why the controlling function is important. Control is an indispensable function of a management. Without control, the best of plans can go awry, means that the best of plans can be of no use if the manager fails to perform the controlling function effectively. If the manager fails to overview, fails to give the feedback, fails to identify the loopholes or the weaknesses in the implementation, then the planning function is of no use. So planning along with controlling is going to give the best result to any manager. Following are the points of importance of controlling. First, accomplishing organizational goals. Second, judging accuracy of standards. Third, making efficient use of resources. Fourth, improving employee motivation. Fifth, ensuring order and discipline. And sixth, facilitating coordination in action. Now let us discuss these points of importance in detail later in the slides. Now the first point of importance of controlling is accomplishing organizational goals. Controlling function measures progress towards the organizational goals and brings to light the deviations, if any, and indicates corrective action. बेटा ये जो फर्स्ट पॉइंट ऑफ इम्पोर्टेंस है, इसके अंदर फिर दोबारा से जो कंट्रोलिंग का मीनिंग है वही रिफ्लेक्ट हो रहा है. ये कहना है कि कंट्रोलिंग फंक्शन मेजर करता है कि आपने अपने ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल गोल्स जो सेट कर रखे हैं वो कहां तक कैसे अचीव किए हैं एंड ब्रिंग्स टू लाइट द डेविएशंस. और अगर आपके जो गोल्स हैं वो 100% अचीव नहीं हुए हैं तो कितनी डेविएशंस है, और अगर डेविएशंस हैं तो what should be the corrective action so that the organizational goals are achieved. So, controlling function guides the organization and keep it on the right track so that organizational goals might be achieved. The ultimate objective of performing this function of management also, it's one of the very important function of management, that the organizational goals are achieved as decided. The second point of importance is judging Accuracy of standards. A good control system enables management to verify whether the standards set are accurate and objective. Now, what do we mean by this? बेटा हमने एक standard set किया, ठीक है? And then when we are performing the controlling function, the manager realized कि हमने standard तो set कर लिया, लेकिन उस स्टैंडर्ड को अचीव करने के लिए हमारे पास रिसोर्सेज ही नहीं है, हमारे पास इतने रिसोर्सेज ही नहीं थे कि हम उस स्टैंडर्ड को अचीव कर पाते. मे बी ह्यूमन रिसोर्स कम था, मे बी फाइनेंशियल रिसोर्सेज नहीं थे. देन व्हाट द मैनेजर शुड डू? मैनेजर शुड रिवाइज द स्टैंडर्ड in the light of the resources available. जो भी रिसोर्सेज अवेलेबल हैं, मैनेजर को इमीडिएटली अपने स्टैंडर्ड्स को रिव्यू करके रिवाइज कर लेना चाहिए. सो एन एफिशिएंट कंट्रोल सिस्टम कीप्स अ केयरफुल चेक on the changes taking place in the organization and in the environment and helps to review and revise the standards in light of such changes. अब कई बार हमने स्टैंडर्ड सेट कर लिए, but some changes are taking place in the environment which is outside the control of the business. बिजनेस के हाथ में है ही नहीं. एक्सटर्नल कंपोनेंट में अगर कोई चेंजेस हो रहे हैं, सपोज देयर इज अ चेंज इन द गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी, देयर इज अ चेंज इन द बैंक रेट्स, एंड द business has to revise business has to revise its plan. There is no other option. So the business has to review and revise the standards in the light of the changes which is taking place in the external environment. And if these standards, original standard set, if they were not accurate, if they were not objective, then also the manager can review them. So that is why controlling function is important in order to judge the accuracy of the standard set. The third point of importance is making efficient use of resources. By exercising control, manager seeks to reduce the wastage and spoilage of resources. Any resource, be it be raw material, your tools and equipments, your human resource. So each activity is performed accordance with the predetermined standards and norms, and then manager seeks to reduce the wastage or spoilage of resources, in turn making the efficient use of available resources with the business. The fourth point of importance is improving employee motivation. देखिए बेटा, अगर आपने कोई स्टैंडर्ड सेट किया है, ठीक है, and you or the employees are able to achieve that standard within time, fine, then obviously the manager is going to applaud them, the manager is going to applaud for them or appreciate them. So in turn, the employee motivation is enhanced. So a good control system ensures that employees know well in advance what they are expected to do and what are the standards of performance on the basis of which they will be appraised. Fine. तो अगर उनको पहले ही पता होता है कि this is the benchmark they need to achieve, and if they achieve that benchmark or standard within the stipulated period of time, so that is going to improve. Obviously, the manager will motivate them, the manager will appreciate them if they are able to achieve the target. So in turn, this will help in improving the employee motivation. Then fifth point of importance of controlling is ensuring order and discipline. So controlling helps to minimize dishonest behavior on the part of the employee by keeping a close check on their activities, and thus order and discipline in the organization is ensured. And lastly, controlling facilitate coordination in action. Each department and employee is governed by predetermined standards which are well coordinated with one another. अब देखिए बेटा, मैंने क्या किया, लेट्स से आई एम दी मैनेजर ऑफ द प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंट, और मैंने कहा कि ठीक है, दिस ईयर वी आर गोइंग टू इंक्रीज द प्रोडक्शन बाय 10%. फाइन. बट द मार्केटिंग डिपार्टमेंट, they are projecting that this year they cannot increase the sale more than 2%. Fine. Due to the um, changes which are taking place in the external environment, the sale cannot be increased by more than 2%. Production department कह रहा है कि हम production 10% increase करेंगे. Marketing कह रहा है कि और sale department कि we cannot increase sale by more than 2%. Seeing the competition, seeing the external environment. So that means if there is no coordination between the various departments, then the resources will be wasted. So each department and employee is governed by predetermined standards, and those standards should be well coordinated with one another. जो भी standard हम set कर रहे हैं, if sales department says that we cannot increase the sales by 2% this year, so production department should also restrict their production up to that percentage only, so that the resources are not wasted. And this will ensure that the overall organizational objectives are achieved. There will be minimum wastage of resources, and that is going to enhance the coordination in action or harmony in various departments. I hope that the importance of controlling is clear to everyone. Let's recapitulate all the 6 points in a reverse order: facilitating coordination in action, ensuring order and discipline, improving employee motivation, making efficient use of resources, judging accuracy of standards, accomplishing organizational goals. So these are the points of importance of controlling for any organization. I hope that the topic is clear to everyone. Now, the relationship between planning and controlling we have taken up when we were discussing this point, judging accuracy of standards, and in detail, the relationship between planning and controlling will be taken up in the next video. And now we'll be starting with the steps in the planning process. Now, there are 5 steps in the planning process. The first step of the planning process is setting performance standards. Second is measurement of actual performance. Third, we'll compare the actual performance measured in step 2 with the standard set in step 1. Then we will analyze the deviations in step 4. And finally, we are going to take corrective actions based upon the analysis of the deviations. If there are too many, too much, then definitely corrective action is required. So we'll take corrective actions and we'll improve in the next phase of planning or in the next financial year. Based upon the feedback of the controlling, we'll try to improvise in the next financial year or in the next phase of planning. So let us discuss this controlling process in detail. First step of controlling process is setting performance standards. Standards are criteria against which actual performance would be measured. Standards, they are the benchmark against which the actual performance would be measured. हम जो अपनी actual performance है उनको measure standards के against ही करते हैं. They serve as a benchmark towards which an organization strive to work. जो हमने standards set किए होते हैं, all the year long the organization work in order to achieve those standards. Standards can be set in both quantitative as well as qualitative terms. Standards हम qualitative और quantitative दोनों terms में set कर सकते हैं. And standards should be flexible enough to be modified whenever required. देखिए standards अगर rigid fix up करेंगे, so sometimes managers and workers they just blindly go and work to meet the target, to meet the standard set. Rather, this is not a good approach. Standards should be flexible enough and they can be modified as and when required depending upon the scenario. Standards in precise quantitative terms. It is better to set the standards in quantitative terms. Whenever qualitative standards are set, an effort must be made to define them in a manner that would make their measurement easier, because it is very difficult to measure the qualitative standards. Like how can I say or I judge that whether a person is honest, whether a person is punctual, or my employee is hardworking. For that, I need to have some criteria to be defined in quantitative terms so that we can comment upon the quality of the employee. There is one more example. For instance, for improving customer satisfaction in the food chain, having self-service standard set can be, see if I need to know कि जो customer मेरी eating joint में आ रहा है वो satisfied है या नहीं है. अब again satisfaction is a qualitative standard. It's a qualitative something qualitative which need to be converted into quantitative terms so that we can say yes कि customer satisfied है या नहीं है. अब कस्टमर सेटिस्फाई है या नहीं है तो हमने क्वांटिटेटिव स्टैंडर्ड्स क्या सेट कर लिए. At a self-service counter, time taken by a customer to wait for a table. ज्यादा वेट करना पड़ेगा तो कस्टमर सेटिस्फाई नहीं होगा. कम वेट करना पड़ेगा तो कस्टमर सेटिस्फाई होगा. Time taken by him to place the order. कितनी देर में वेटर आके ऑर्डर टेबल से ले जाता है. Again, if the waiting time is more, the customer will not be satisfied. But if the waiting time is less, customer would be satisfied. And finally, time taken to collect the order. और ऑर्डर जब वो प्लेस करता है तो उसके पास ऑर्डर कितनी देर में आ जाता है, how much time does he take to collect the order, is also going to be a deciding criteria whether the customer is satisfied or not. So same way, if we want to measure any qualitative standards, those qualitative standards should be converted into some quantitative terms in order to comment upon the qualitative standards. The second step in the controlling process is measurement of actual performance. जो आपका actual result है उसको हम measure करते हैं. और जब हम actual result को measure कर रहे होते हैं बेटा तो हम वही यूनिट्स लेते हैं जिनमें हमने स्टैंडर्ड सेट किए हैं. देखिए अगर मैंने स्टैंडर्ड सेट किया है, लेट्स से प्रीवियस स्लाइड में देखते हैं, हमने स्टैंडर्ड सेट किया कि कस्टमर सेटिस्फेक्शन हम जानने के लिए देखेंगे कि व्हाट इज द टाइम टेकन बाय द कस्टमर टू वेट फॉर अ टेबल, टू प्लेस एन ऑर्डर एंड टू कलेक्ट द ऑर्डर. और जब मैं एक्चुअल रिजल्ट को मेजर कर रही हूँ तो मैं कस्टमर से फीडबैक ले रही हूँ किसके ऊपर, कि आपको यहाँ की हाइजीन कैसी लगी, या आपको यहाँ पर ये जो डेकोरेशन है वो कैसी लगी. फाइन. तो मैंने जो क्राइटेरिया सेट किया है, स्टैंडर्ड जो सेट किया है, एक्चुअल परफॉर्मेंस भी मुझे उसी यूनिट में उसी स्टैंडर्ड को कंपेयर करने के लिए उसी यूनिट में एक्चुअल परफॉर्मेंस को भी मेजर करना है. So performance should be measured in an objective and reliable manner. It should be measured in same units in which standards are set. as this would make their comparison easier. क्योंकि standard मैंने किसी unit में set कर दिए, actual performance मैं किसी unit में measure करूंगी, तो I cannot compare the actual performance with the standards. In order to facilitate comparison in the next step, I need to measure the actual performance in the same units in which the standards were set. Measurement of work should be done during the performance. Obviously, when the performance of work or the work is being going on, we measure the work while it is in progress. Measurement of company's performance may involve calculations of certain ratios, और हम ये ratios सीख के भी आए हैं. Accountancy में ratio analysis में we have learned how to measure the gross profit ratio, net profit ratio, return on investment, etc. at periodical intervals. And these ratios are very helpful in measuring the actual performance of the business. Progress of work is certain in certain operating areas, like marketing can be measured by considering the number of units sold, increase in market share, etc. अगर मुझे ये देखना है कि मेरा marketing department efficiently काम कर रहा है नहीं कर रहा, तो I can measure that what is the total number of units sold in a year, whether it has increased or not, whether the market share is increased or not, and efficiency of production may be measured by counting the number of pieces produced and the number of defective pieces in a batch. अगर मेरे number of defective pieces in a batch is increasing, ज़्यादा हो रहे हैं, like say in a batch of 100 units, if 5 pieces are defective, it is okay. But if more than 5 pieces are defective, that means something is wrong with my production activity, with the workers, that calls for a manager's attention and taking corrective action timely. So that is what efficiency in production may be measured by counting the number of pieces produced and the number of defective pieces in a batch. So you can see production department hai, so there is different criteria for measuring the performance. Marketing department ki different criteria, fine. And the company's overall performance, different ratios have been used to measure the actual performance. Now, comparing the actual performance with standards, comparison will reveal the standards, the deviations between actual and desired result. जब हम अब actual result जो कि हमने step 2 में calculate किया, उसको हम compare करेंगे with the desired result, that is with the standards जो कि हमने step 1 में set किए थे, then we will be able to know that what are the deviations, difference क्या है, क्या हमने standard achieve कर लिया, नहीं किया, तो difference क्या है, कितना हम standard achieve नहीं कर पाए, या कहीं हमने ज़्यादा standard achieve कर, standard से ज़्यादा output produce कर लिया या target achieve कर लिया. So comparison becomes easier when standards are set in quantitative terms. This point we have already discussed before. Now we analyze the deviations. Some deviations in performance can be expected in all activities. हमेशा ऐसा नहीं होता कि हम 100% accuracy से अपने targets को achieve कर लेते हैं. कुछ एक deviations it is acceptable और होती भी हैं, because after all we all are human beings. Human beings are working. Even machines can also commit errors. It is therefore important to determine the acceptable range of deviations. तो हम पहले से deviations भी कितनी range में accepted है, that we pre-decide, and for that we use two tools: critical point control and management by exception. Both these tools are being used by a manager in this regard. Now let us understand what do we mean by these. Based upon the feedback which we get, we plan the remedial plan of action. Critical point control should focus on key result areas which are critical to the success of an organization. Now, key result areas are set as the critical points. If anything goes wrong at critical point, the entire organization suffers. Let us understand this with the help of an example. For instance, in a manufacturing organization, an increase in 5% of labor cost may be more troublesome than a 15% increase in postal charges. देखिए बेटा, अगर एक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जो wages हैं, they constitute the major part of your expenses. For example, labor cost is in, let's say 10 lakh. Fine, labor cost is 10 lakh. Up 10 lakh पे 5%, 10 lakh पे 5% increase is going to be 50,000. और पोस्टल चार्जेस हमारे पूरे साल में 1000 के ही होते थे, और 1000 पे अगर 15% इंक्रीज हो गया पोस्टल चार्जेस पे, तो that is going to be 15% increase in 1000 on 1000 will be just an increase of 150 rupees. So definitely our labor cost in a manufacturing organization is a critical point control area, key result area. Fine. So this cost need to be taken care of immediately. A 5% increase in labor cost is going to be more troublesome than a 15% increase in postal charges. Next is management by exception. Management by exception is also referred to as control by exception. There is a very well-versed saying. It says, an attempt to control everything results in controlling nothing. बेटा, अगर कई बार हमारे पास बोर्ड में ये स्टेटमेंट एज इट इज आती है, an attempt to control everything results in controlling everything. So you have to, and they ask for the explanation. That means we have to explain this technique of analyzing deviation, that is management by exception. Now, what do we mean by this? If a plan lay down 2% increase in labor cost as an acceptable range of deviation in a manufacturing organization, only increase in labor cost beyond 2% should be brought to the notice of the management, otherwise not. क्या मतलब हुआ? देखिए बेटा, हर साल इन्फ्लेशन होती है, तो मैनेजमेंट ने क्या डिसाइड किया हुआ है कि हर साल अगर 2% इंक्रीज होती है लेबर कॉस्ट में, so it's an acceptable range of deviation, so nothing is required, it is acceptable. लेकिन अगर 2% से ज्यादा इंक्रीज होती है लेबर कॉस्ट में, then it calls for management attention. However, in case of major deviations from standard, say 5%, the matter has to be receive immediate attention or action of management on a priority basis. I hope that these two techniques, critical point control and management by exception for analyzing the deviation, is clear to everyone. The advantages of critical point control and management by objective are: it saves time and effort of managers. Fine. The time and effort of manager is saved as they deal with only significant deviations. It focuses managerial attention on important areas, and thus there is a better utilization of managerial talent. The third advantage is that the routine problems are left to subordinates. जो routine problem है, subordinates can take care of them. और कोई ऐसी प्रॉब्लम जिसमें मैनेजर की जरूरत है, मैनेजर की एक्सपर्टीज की जरूरत है, that can be dealt with manager only. So management by exception thus facilitate delegation of authority and increases the morale of the employees. ये हम organization chapter में भी करके आए हैं, that when we delegate the authority to our subordinate, that increases the morale of the employee. And lastly, both these techniques identify critical problems which need timely action to keep the organization in right track. I hope that the advantages of critical point control and management by exception is clear to everyone. Now, taking corrective action is the last step of the controlling process. No controlling action, corrective action is required when deviations are within the acceptable limit. अगर मेरी डेविएशन एक्सेप्टेबल लिमिट के अंदर है तो मुझे कोई करेक्टिव एक्शन लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. Corrective action might involve training of employees if production target could not be met. देखिए, मैंने एक प्रोडक्शन टारगेट सेट किया था एज अ प्रोडक्शन मैनेजर, बट प्रोडक्शन target couldn't be achieved. So when I analyzed the deviations, as a production manager, I found that it was an error on our part, on the organization part, कि हमारे जो employees है उनको proper training ही नहीं मिली हुई है. तो मैंने करेक्टिव एक्शन क्या आइडेंटिफाई किया कि अगर मैं एम्प्लॉय को ट्रेनिंग दिलवा दूं, their efficiency will increase and the production target will be met on time. Similarly, an important project is running behind schedule. Corrective action might involve assigning of additional workers and equipments to the project and permission for overtime. Again, as a production manager, मैंने ये ऑब्जर्व किया कि हमारा जो प्रोडक्शन वर्क चल रहा है दैट इज बिहाइंड द स्केड्यूल. हमारी डिलीवरी डेट आने वाली है और अभी तक हमारे प्रोडक्शन कंप्लीट नहीं हुई है. तो करेक्टिव एक्शन, दिस सिचुएशन इमीडिएटली कॉज फॉर अ करेक्टिव एक्शन. और करेक्टिव एक्शन क्या हो सकता है? मैं एडिशनल वर्कर्स को हायर करूं, उनको ओवर टाइम कराऊं, एडिशनल इक्विपमेंट्स परचेज करूं टू मीट द टारगेट ऑन टाइम. As if you remember, we have learned this in our first chapter, that it needs to be effective rather than efficient. Effectiveness is going to pay to the organization in long run. That is, we have to meet our target. We have to make the delivery on time. Now, here are some few examples, few more examples of corrective actions that could be taken. See, causes of deviation. First is your defective material. So what corrective action does it require? Change the quality specification for the material used. Cause of deviation is defective machinery. So again, the corrective action could be either to repair or to replace that machinery. Causes of deviation is obsolete machinery. So obviously we have to purchase the upgraded machinery which is technologically up to the mark. Fine. Then the fourth cause of deviation is defective process. So corrective action could be modified. The fifth cause of deviation is defective physical conditions of work. Fine. अगर defective physical condition है work की, काम करने की, so corrective action obvious is improve the physical condition of work. So these are the few examples of the corrective action which can be taken by the manager in case they identify the following causes of deviations. I hope that the controlling process is clear to everyone. So if we just recall the controlling process, it would be first is setting performance standards. Second step, measurement of actual performance. Third, comparing the actual performance with the standards. Fourth, analyzing deviations, and the two tools which we use for analyzing the deviation is management by exception and critical point control. And finally, taking corrective actions. I hope that the controlling process is clear to everyone. Hope all of you have enjoyed the learning today. That's all for today from my side. Thank you very much.